Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, a place for men to talk about masculinity and men's rights and issues. I'm your host, Brian Krall, and I know you out there are probably wondering who I am exactly and why you should be listening to me speak about these issues. Aside from the fact that I do identify as a man, when it comes to my knowledge and professional and educational background, I studied social science and sexuality for over a decade and a half, and I've been in the personal development industry for even longer than that, with a focus on the psychology of identity and identity work called logotherapy. I spent a decade teaching these things professionally in my company, True Life Development, so I'm very well versed on the sciences of psychology, sociology, and sexuality, as well as the politics of men's issues in the current gender war and cultural revolution we're going through with fourth wave feminism. I also identify as an intellectual, and I've always had a love of research and academics, and I'm going to approach the topics on this channel in a more academic perspective than one just based on personal experience or what we call anecdotal evidence. Though, of course, I will also be speaking from personal experience as well. I'll be speaking about men's issues and masculinity through the academic lens of the field of social science. All right, I'm not just an opinionated woman hater, though I certainly am that, but I'm not just that. I'm also a scientific, rational-minded, logical, and evidence-based thinker. I'm a philosopher, but also a realist, and I'm additionally an author on all of these topics. So I feel as though my ability to write and present my messages is one of my strengths, and that you'll find my manner of doing so may elucidate and shed light upon these topics in many more ways than most men you may have heard in the manosphere, in the way that they talk about them. And this is due to my deep analytical, detail-oriented manner of critical thinking. These are qualities that come from many, many years of both study and research and field work and life experiences to reflect upon and derive wisdom from. So, personal experience and anecdotal evidence does also play an integral part of what I'm going to be sharing with you. And on a personal level, I used to be a ladies' man. I was raised by a narcissistic socialite mother, thus I was trained by her to be very pro-social, and I had a very open and extroverted personality and was always good with women and very interested in them, which is the biggest thing. Now, my mom, she was a second-wave feminist, which was before feminism became evil and was, more about women being sexually liberated and being able to work and earn equal pay. But she did program me with a lot of bad feminist beliefs about women, that in early adulthood I learned the hard way were not only wrong, but the opposite of what was true and actually worked with women. I learned that taking my mother's advice in dating would only lead me to being rejected or even used and then shit on by women. And it was a very hard set of pills to swallow and tough lessons to learn, but luckily I'm a good learner. I'm not incorrigible, which I always thought was a very bad quality. So when pickup artistry came around, I was already breaking into the professional dating market as a dating coach and relationship specialist and sex educator. And I became affiliated with the big gurus and pioneers of the PUA and seduction industry, such as Ross Jeffries. And I became very successful in this industry over time, not, of course, anywhere near as successful as they were, but I enjoyed much success and did 2 world tours and became somewhat of an international playboy. See, as a pickup artist or player or playboy, whatever you want to call it, I had this goal in life of fucking at least 100 women in my lifetime, which, over the course of an entire life, of several decades with constant practice, this is a actually reasonably attainable goal. And, I did very well for myself sexually for a long time, and eventually I got into BDSM and became a dom, and then after that I became a professional pornographer and started getting paid for making videos of myself playing out my wildest, kinkiest sexual fantasies with the girls I picked up. So I was living the life of my dreams in many ways, but there was also a dark side, and oftentimes women made my life more of a nightmare than a dream come true. So in the end, I never actually reached my goal of fucking 100 women. I fell short, partly due to opportunities that I took for granted, where, I didn't fuck a girl right when she was down to fuck and figured I could close the deal later in the night, but then wasn't able to, either due to her flakiness or maybe even my inability to get an erection from being too drunk and tired by the end of the night. But, see, it was mostly because I decided to stop playing the game altogether before I reached 100. After spending 2 decades chasing tail, I had grown to no longer desire the company of women. I literally had no more tolerance for them whatsoever. I had spent over 20 years sexually active, networking around the world and meeting tens of thousands of women across over a dozen different cultures and even more cities within those cultures, connecting with thousands of girls of all different types and demographics and going on hundreds of first dates. Fucking, in the end, 86 in total, most of which were very attractive. I had about a dozen longer-term relationships with varying degrees of seriousness and thought that I was in love 6 times with varying degrees of intensity. And I had long-term relationships, that lasted more than a year with, just a few women. And one of which, who I had my longest relationship with, I had a son with, who was going to be 15 years old this year. So needless to say, I have vast experience with women. But not only that, I'm a social scientist. And a lot of my experience with women has been formally documented. And I've actually done studies on my history with women. I've taken statistics and done graphs on it and such. So I have a lot of experience that is able to be used in order to make sociological observations and conclusions with, right? But my experience is also very personal and emotional. And many of these women hurt me to varying degrees as well. So, there's a certain level of emotional experience that is going on here that really also informs my views on women. And a few of these women fucked me over really hard, financially, legally, professionally, or otherwise. My son's mother took my son away from me. More and more over the years, my contact with him has decreased to none. I used to, before he was in school, before he started kindergarten, I used to see him a lot more, talk to him. He used to call me on the phone. But, she sort of campaigned against me, both in family court and by using psychological warfare with him, treating his mind as a battleground to turn him against me. And then there was 2 girlfriends that I had business projects with who fucked me over in the end, professionally and financially, costing me serious money and wronging me, right? Doing things they said they would never do. When we, entered into the business partnership together. And I could go on and on about the devastating impact women have had on my life, but I won't now. There will be time for that later. The point is that after all that time and energy that I spent on women, as I crossed over into my mid-30s and my hormones and libido finally began to cool down, I started to take a good hard look back on my life and regret how I had spent my youth, as many men tend to do as they grow older. You see, I had not achieved the level of success I had hoped I would have by then. I'd hoped that by then I would be close to where, my affiliates who had pioneered the, dating and seduction and PUA industry had been. I had done 2 world tours. I had gotten pretty far, but not far enough. Not as far as I could have. I realized, this was almost entirely because of the huge amount of time and energy I had spent, wasted on women. Though I had refused to spend money on them, they were still costing me time and energy, which are, priceless resources that, do actually equal money and could even be thought of as more valuable than money since you can never get them back once you've spent them. You may think to yourself, well, you can make more money and get more energy, but the older you get, the less of these things you have. So you'll never get back the days of your youth when you are in your prime and you have this seemingly endless supply of energy and time. Back in the days, you need less sleep. You function faster and better. You have more strength. Waking up in the morning is quicker and easier. Working, you can work harder. You have more energy to work hard. You got more energy for fitness. You're going to have more mental alertness. You're going to be more productive. These days, now that I'm entering my late 30s, I'm a much slower, less energetic person. I need more sleep and accomplish less during the day. It takes me longer to wake up in the morning. I'm not able to see the same level of gains in fitness that I used to. I'm not able to work as hard and be as productive as I used to. So I look back and wish I hadn't wasted my youth on women and partying and such. I did so because I thought it was actually an investment. I was mastering social networking, building relationships, and that I would become a polyamorous playboy while in my prime until eventually I would find one ultimate woman to partner with who would be like the one, or maybe perhaps a harem of favorites that I would end up settling down in a long-term relationship with. However, the investment of dating did not end up having a return or ROI, as we say in the business world. Wait a minute. Now a word from our sponsor, me. Do you value the ability to use words to do things such as compose meaningful sentences and speak the truth? Did you know that here in this great country of America, you have the right to free speech? And so do I. And if you don't support people who are exercising that right, then you are probably a fascist dictator. Just like the YouTube algorithm, which stifles the content of patriotic people like me who dare to speak out against the gynocentric, matriarchal, feminist regime that has been aggressively taking over our country. And if YouTube isn't going to promote my content and is going to suppress it instead, I can only rely upon you, my viewers, to show your support. If you don't support free speech, we will stop having it. Which is exactly what is already happening with YouTube videos that censor themselves getting promoted and explicit ones like mine getting shadow banned. So, if you like listening to me use my free speech, make sure to press like and share and donate whatever you can with the PayPal link below. Don't make me work for free and get censored like a fucking communist. And with the presidential election coming up, your donations can literally be used to fund my campaign to get into the White House and abolish the matriarchy once and for all. Literally. Who would you rather have as your president? An old limp-dick liberal leftist cuck with noodly arms who's probably never been in a real fight in his life? Or a good old-fashioned, misogynistic, patriarchal man's man like me with balls big enough to stand up to women? And who you can count on to speak out against them and tell it like it is. Fight the feminazi dictatorship. Spread the message of masculinism. Keep my work alive. And now, back to our regularly scheduled content. Dating ended up proving itself to be a bad long-term investment. And, this is because, in spite of the fact that I was having fun being social and sexual, and I got laid, kind of a lot, not as much as I had hoped, but the real issue was not the amount of sex I was or wasn't having. Eventually, I had to face the cold, hard facts that after connecting with so many women in so many ways, they were all essentially the same. No matter what type of woman I was with, from what culture or demographic, she couldn't relate to me in a healthy, emotional way. She couldn't satisfy my sexual needs fully. She couldn't challenge me intellectually. She couldn't act as my equal partner and, be in a 50-50 relationship with me. She couldn't make an equal contribution to building a life together. She would have no relationship skills and usually struggle to communicate like an intelligent adult at all. And, she had nothing to bring to the table as a wife. Couldn't cook, clean, or do anything you would expect of someone in a domestic partnership. I didn't meet any woman I would have wanted to have, even as roommates, right? I kept a better apartment than the women I dated. I knew how to cook, and they didn't. So any women I dated and got close with ended up always coming over to my place instead of inviting me to theirs. I always ended up playing the host, which really led me to playing the role of a caregiver or even acting like their father in many ways. And of course, 100% of these women out there are hypergamous. They really have nothing to offer a man besides companionship and sex, which, is low quality. And even when it seems meaningful and romantic, it ends up just being superficial and erroneous. It's a game played by nature for our reproductive success. There would come a point with every woman I dated in which I realized that I was doing all of the giving in the relationship. She was doing all of the taking. That I had everything to offer her that she needed and wanted and was fulfilling all of her desires, but that she wasn't even meeting any of my basic needs. That I was basically better off without them. Of course, by that point, I would always be hooked by the pair bonding hormones in my brain, giving me this idea that I was in love with them. But eventually, there would also come a time, sooner or later, in which the woman would start to have a very negative, destructive, and harmful impact upon me, and we would break up, leaving me heartbroken and destroyed, even though I knew I shouldn't feel that way and should instead feel glad to be free. What I realized was that all this time, I was just a slave to the biological imperative for pair bonding and reproduction that nature has programmed us with. That pair bonding hormones, such as oxytocin and vasopressin, had turned me into a love addict. What I thought of as romance was really more like codependence. And attraction hormones such as testosterone, estrogen, dopamine, norepinephrine, and phenylethylamine had turned me into a sex addict. I had considered myself a high-status alpha male playboy and dom, but I realized that this was all just a narcissistic lie that I had come to believe about myself. I had tried to make women my sex slaves, but actually I was the one who had ended up becoming a slave to them and their sex. So, like an alcoholic who has hit rock bottom, in this moment of clarity, I knew that if I was to succeed, self-actualize, and live the life I wanted to live, that I had to give up my drug of choice, which was women. I realized that if only I had invested all that time and energy that I had into women, into my business and my life and personal development, I probably would be as successful as I had aspired to be, and I would be living the life I wished I could. That moment of realization was exactly 2 years ago when I was turning 36 years old. Next week, I'm turning 38, and I'm very proud to say that I haven't had sex, gone on a date, or even done so much as talk to a woman, except, in a socially polite or professional way, since then. And miraculously, my quality of life has drastically improved in that time. And I'm talking about big improvements. For instance, suddenly, I don't have to deal with any more drama or mind games and manipulation. I don't have anyone leeching off of me like a fucking blood-sucking vampire. I don't have anyone to explain myself to. I can do whatever the fuck I want, when I want, and how I want. I have complete control over my life, complete autonomy and sovereignty. I'm able to use my time and my energy however I want. I can focus on myself and live for me and only me as solipsistically as I want to. I'm able to live as a free man should. And I was able to do it only because I had gone what we, called full MGTOW monk mode. I didn't do it all at once. And, that time when I was 36, 2 years ago, and decided, to become abstinent, that wasn't the first time that I had taken a red pill and decided to become, MGTOW. I started digesting red pills when they first came out, several years ago, like I think in 2014, maybe earlier, maybe 2013. And the process of losing interest in women was a gradual one. There was a time when I couldn't get enough of them, couldn't get enough gaming. I was doing pickup all the time. I had dates every other day. I was a nightclub promoter, so I was going out to nightclub events my company hosted every weekend and going out to, do social, stuff, social networking and pickup, like basically every day that I didn't have a date, and I was juggling multiple relationships at all times. And when I was in my prime, I was fucking on average a girl every other week for the better part of a year. But over time, my interest in playing the game waned slowly year after year, and I lost interest in polyamory, then relationships altogether, then dating, and finally sex. You could say that I was like purple pill for a while. I had taken red pills, but kept trying to make dating and sex and, some sort of relations with women work, while over time having less and less to do with them, until finally I went full monk mode. I dropped women cold turkey, like the bad habit that I realized they are. And curing my sex addiction was like a journey of wrestling with drug addiction or gambling addiction. It's like I kept making these excuses to myself about why I should keep giving women chances, why I should keep having sex and dating, and, maybe even looking for love, being romantic, being intimate. But I was doing it less and less and less over time. So finally I realized the only way to be truly healthy and safe and protected is to just not do it at all. And after that, I started feeling much better and living better. Now, I had been doing this as sort of this party like a rock star lifestyle I had been living, which came natural to me as a musician and also as a person who likes to smoke and drink. So it was only natural to have a sort of party lifestyle, and getting laid, picking up girls, it just goes hand in hand with that. However, as you get older, partying like that is harder on your health, on your physical and mental health. Over time, I had to stop smoking and drinking as much. And, as time went on, it was only natural for me to stop fucking with bitches as much as well. And the less I fraternized with women, the more I realized that just like drug addiction, there's an inverse relationship between, the amount you do women and your quality of life. And just as how if I was partying too much, and maybe binge drinking and using, too much drugs, I would really start to fuck up my life. And the same was true for women. The more I dated, the more casual sex I had, or the more deeply I fell in love and got involved in a relationship with a woman, basically the more relations I had with women of any type the worse my life got. And the less I fraternized and fucked with women, the better my life got. Until I finally severed my last connection with that one last woman in my life that I was attached to 2 years ago. And I realized that after her, I had no desire to ever be with another woman ever again in any capacity. I had made the decision I was no longer going to let my brain be hijacked by fucking pussy. I was going to give up my goal of fucking 100 women in my life, as well as my goal of finding at least one ultimate female partner to settle down with, since I'd realized that concepts such as soulmates and the one are really just fairy tales. I went from living for women to living for me and only me, no one else. And that's the way it should be. Now, I'm living the best life I possibly can live. I'm more focused, more fulfilled, I'm having more fun by doing more of the things that I want to be doing. I'm developing hobbies and developing more passions and pursuits as well, and achieving more personal and professional goals as an athlete, as a musician, as an author, as a culinary artist, and many things that require a certain level of solipsism to cultivate, and which I couldn't before when I was too focused on women. And women really were taking me away from myself and things that were really important in my life. And I'm able to do more self-improvement now and achieve new heights of self-actualization that I never could when women were constantly holding me down, which is exactly what they do by leeching off of your resources, namely your time and energy. So that's my story. That is how I came to, this point that I'm at in life where I've decided to do this kind of channel. And thank you for listening. I hope it brings at least a little inspiration to you, that maybe you could do the same, follow a similar path of solipsism and going your own way, as it's called. And I also hope that you will subscribe to this channel and check out the content that I have to come, because I'm going to be bringing you all the lessons that I've learned over the last 2 decades or so, both professionally in my work as a social scientist and sex educator, and personally as a former lover of women and a masculine man achieving his own male sovereignty now. I have a lot of intellectual content for you men out there to help you do the same, so please stay tuned. And if there's anything you'd like me to address, just let me know. That concludes this video. Thanks for listening. I hope I mansplained that good enough for you. If you like what you heard, please click the like button. And if you feel you gained some value from this video and would like to give some back, please do so with the PayPal link below, because your support helps fund me doing this work and fight the good fight for men like you. If you are ready to take the red pill and wake up from the matrix and the matriarchy controlling it and learn everything you need to know about female on male sexism, get your copy of my newly released book called Misandry Exposed, on sale now for a special price that won't last long. So check it out by clicking the link below. And otherwise, you can stay tuned for my next video coming out tomorrow. And otherwise, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.